It was before dawn, the muted morning light barely spilling through the curtains of the small bedroom. He was laying in bed, staring at the ceiling, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Today was the day he had been waiting for, the local baseball team tryouts. At 12 years old, Jake Johnson was filled with dreams of catching fly balls, sliding into home plate, and wearing the team's jersey with pride. The thought of joining his friends on the field made his fire burn. Yet there was also the weight of expectation pressed heavily on his shoulders, as it always did when it came to baseball. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and rubbed the sleep from his eyes. The familiar scent of pancakes wafted through the air, mingling with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, a sign that his mother, Linda, was already hard at work in the kitchen. Jake dressed quickly, donning his favorite pair of worn-out sneakers and a cap that was slightly too big for his head. But it was the last piece of clothing he slipped on that mattered most, his father's old baseball jersey. The fabric felt soft against his skin, rich with the memories of his father's glory days. The faded lettering on the back read, "Johnson," and Jake felt a swell of pride as he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror. He imagined himself stepping onto the field, the crowd cheering, his father watching proudly from the bleachers. But along with that pride came a gnawing pressure, a fear of not living up to the legacy his father had left behind. "Jake, breakfast is ready," Linda called from the kitchen, her voice warm and inviting. He hurried down the narrow hallway, the floor creaking beneath his feet. As he entered the kitchen, the sight of a stack of golden pancakes and a plate of crispy bacon brought a smile to his face. His mother stood at the stove, her hair tied back in a messy bun, her apron dusted with flour. She turned and beamed at him. "Look at you, ready for the big day?" she asked, pouring syrup over the pancakes. Jake nodded, feeling butterflies in his stomach. "I can't wait, Mom. I just hope I do well." Linda placed a plate in front of him, her expression turning more serious. "You know, your father was a fantastic player back in the day. He could hit a home run like it was nothing. Just remember to have fun out there, okay? Don't let the pressure get to you." "Yeah, I know," Jake replied, his fork clinking against the plate. "But what if I don't make the team? What if everyone thinks I'm just riding on Dad's coattails?" Linda sat down across from him, her eyes softening. "Sweetheart, your father would want you to do your best and enjoy the game. It's not about the jersey or the name on the back. It's about the love for the sport. Just play like you know how." Jake took a deep breath, trying to absorb her words. "I'll try. I promise." As he finished his breakfast, his mind raced with thoughts of the day ahead. The local park was buzzing with excitement, kids in colorful jerseys practicing their swings and parents chatting in groups. Jake felt a mix of anticipation and dread. He knew that the other boys would be just as eager to impress Coach Thompson, who had a reputation for being tough but fair. After breakfast, Jake grabbed his glove and bat, feeling the familiar weight of them in his hands. He took one last look at his father's jersey hanging over his chair, a silent reminder of the legacy he carried with him. "I can do this," he whispered to himself as he headed out the door. The drive to the field felt longer than usual, each passing moment amplifying his nerves. He glanced at his reflection in the window, the sight of his father's jersey, filling him with both pride and anxiety. What if Coach Thompson looked at him and only saw Mike Johnson's son? What if he expected too much? When they arrived, the park was alive with the sounds of laughter and the rhythmic thud of baseballs hitting gloves. Jake stepped out of the car, his heart racing. He spotted his friends, Tom and Lucas, tossing a ball back and forth. They waved him over, their excitement palpable. "Jake, you ready to crush it today?" Tom shouted, a playful grin on his face. "Yeah, totally. Just trying not to mess up," Jake replied, forcing a smile. As they walked toward the field, Jake couldn't help but notice the competitive glances exchanged among the other kids. Everyone was sizing each other up, determined to show off their skills. The air was thick with anticipation, and the sense of camaraderie quickly morphed into an unspoken rivalry. "Hey, is that your dad's jersey?" Lucas asked, pointing at Jake's shirt, his voice a mix of admiration and curiosity. "Yeah, it is," Jake said, his chest swelling again. "I thought it would give me good luck." Tom chuckled. "You better hope it doesn't bring you bad luck. What if you strike out?" Jake felt a twinge of anxiety at the thought, but he shook it off. "I won't. I'm going to show them what I can do." As they approached the field, Coach Thompson's booming voice echoed across the park, calling the players to gather around. The coach was a large man with a rugged demeanor, his sun-tanned skin and graying hair giving him an air of authority. Jake felt his stomach twist as he took his place among the other aspiring players. "All right, listen up," Coach Thompson bellowed, scanning the group with his sharp gaze. "Today's about showing your skills. We'll see who has what it takes to make the team. I expect everyone to give it their all." Jake's heart raced. "Here goes nothing," he murmured under his breath, trying to steady his nerves. As Coach Thompson began to organize the warm-up drills, Jake couldn't shake the feeling of being under scrutiny. He glanced around at the other kids, some already stretching and practicing their swings. He felt a thrill of determination surge within him. He wanted to prove that he deserved to be there, not just as Mike Johnson's son, but as Jake Johnson, a player in his own right. Just then, Coach Thompson's gaze landed on Jake's jersey. He raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "Johnson, huh? You're wearing your father's old jersey," he said, crossing his arms. Jake nodded, a mix of pride and worry flooding his chest. "Yeah, I thought it would be lucky." The coach's expression softened for a moment, the corners of his mouth twitching into a slight smile. "Well, let's see if that luck holds true today," he said, motioning for Jake to join the others in the warm-up. As they began stretching and throwing the ball around, Jake's nerves slowly started to dissipate. He felt the familiar rhythm of the game take over, the camaraderie of his teammates slowly easing his tension. But in the back of his mind, the weight of his father's legacy loomed large. Would he be able to carve his own path, or would he always be seen as just Mike Johnson's son? With a deep breath, he focused on the task at hand, determined to make today a day to remember, a day that might finally break the mold of expectation and allow him to step into his own identity on the field. The sun hung low in the sky as Jake Johnson and his mother, Linda, approached the baseball field. The familiar scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the distant sound of laughter and chatter from other kids. As they walked, Jake's heart raced, each thump of his pulse echoing his excitement and anxiety. He could see the other boys warming up, their competitive spirits palpable in the air. Some tossed the ball back and forth, while others practiced their swings, each one more skilled than the last. "Remember, Jake," Linda said, her voice steady yet filled with warmth. "Just have fun out there. It's about doing your best, not just winning." Jake nodded, though the pressure weighed heavily on him. He glanced at the other kids, their faces set in determined expressions, and felt a knot tighten in his stomach. They all seemed so confident, so ready to claim their spots on the team. He looked down at the old jersey he wore, the fabric soft and worn, a piece of his father's legacy that felt both comforting and suffocating at the same time. As they reached the field, Jake spotted Coach Thompson, a gruff man with a no-nonsense demeanor, surveying the players. The coach's brow furrowed as he noticed Jake's jersey, and for a brief moment their eyes locked. Jake's heart leaped in his chest. He couldn't tell if the coach was impressed or disapproving. He felt a flutter of nerves as whispers rippled through the crowd of parents. "Is that Mike Johnson's kid?" one parent asked, pointing at Jake. "Yeah, I heard he's trying out for the team today," another replied, their voice laced with intrigue. "Wonder if he's got his father's talent." Jake swallowed hard, the weight of his father's past hanging over him like a dark cloud. He felt a mix of pride and anxiety, knowing that everyone's expectations were tied to a man he admired more than anyone else. "Jake," Linda called, breaking him from his thoughts. "Warm up with the others." He nodded and jogged over to where a group of boys were stretching. They looked at him curiously, some whispering among themselves. Jake could feel their eyes on him, the weight of their scrutiny sending a shiver down his spine. He forced a smile, trying to project confidence as he joined in the warm-up exercises. "Hey, nice jersey," one boy said, his tone both mocking and impressed. "You think you can throw like him?" Jake straightened his posture, trying to ignore the jab. "Yeah, I can throw just fine," he replied, a hint of defiance in his voice. "Let's see it then," the boy challenged, smirking. As the warm-ups continued, Jake's nerves began to settle a little. He focused on his breathing, pushing away thoughts of the other kids and their expectations. Instead, he thought of his father, Mike Johnson, the star pitcher whose legacy loomed large over him. The stories of his father's games danced in his mind, each strikeout a reminder of the greatness he aspired to achieve. "Jake." The voice of Coach Thompson cut through his reverie. "Let's see you warm up your arm." Jake's heart raced again as he stepped forward, squaring his shoulders. He glanced up at the bleachers, where he spotted his father watching intently. Mike's face was a mixture of pride and concern, and Jake felt a surge of confidence pulse through him. He took a deep breath and threw the ball with all his might, the satisfying crack of the bat echoing in his ears, as he imagined himself striking out the competition. The ball sailed through the air, landing perfectly in the glove of his partner. "Nice throw," the boy exclaimed, a bit more genuine this time. "Yeah, not bad," another boy admitted, a hint of respect creeping into his tone. Jake felt a flicker of hope. If he could impress them, maybe he could impress Coach Thompson too. As practice continued, Jake found himself lost in the rhythm of the game. He caught grounders, threw to first base, and even managed to hit a couple of balls off the tee. Each successful play built his confidence, and he could feel the eyes of the coach on him, assessing and weighing his performance. "All right, gather around," Coach Thompson called, clapping his hands to get everyone's attention. The boys quickly assembled in a semicircle, Jake's heart pounding with anticipation. "Today's tryouts are all about showing me what you've got. I want to see your skills, your teamwork, and most importantly, your heart." Jake felt a surge of determination. He was here to prove himself, to show that he was more than just Mike Johnson's son. He was Jake Johnson, and he was ready to carve his own path. After the initial warm-up, Coach Thompson began to run drills. They practiced pitching, hitting, and fielding, each station designed to test their abilities. Jake was on fire, his nerves slowly giving way to adrenaline. He struck out a couple of boys at the pitching station, earning nods of approval from the coach. "Good job, Jake. Keep that arm loose," Coach Thompson shouted, his voice booming across the field. Jake grinned, feeling the thrill of the game coursing through him. He glanced up at his father again, who was nodding in support. That look of encouragement fueled his desire to shine even brighter. He wanted to make Mike proud, to show him that the legacy he inherited was alive and well within him. As the tryouts progressed, Jake noticed the other boys were starting to tire, their energy waning. They had been running drills for what felt like hours, but Jake felt invigorated. He was determined to leave everything on the field, to make this moment count. "All right, everyone, time for some scrimmage," Coach Thompson announced, signaling a shift in the atmosphere. The boys cheered, excitement bubbling over as they split into two teams. Jake's team took the field first, and he found himself on the pitcher's mound. The weight of the moment settled on his shoulders, but he welcomed it. He took a deep breath, remembering the countless hours he spent practicing with his father. This was his time to shine. As the first batter stepped up, Jake's heart raced. He focused, visualizing the strike zone. He threw the ball with precision, the sound of the bat missing the ball echoing in his ears. Strike one. The batter fidgeted, and Jake felt a wave of confidence wash over him. He was in control. "Come on, Jake," his teammates cheered from the sidelines, their voices a chorus of encouragement. With each pitch, Jake felt himself getting into a groove. He struck out the first batter, then the second, and with each out, his confidence soared. Coach Thompson stood at the edge of the field, arms crossed, watching intently. This was it, the moment Jake had dreamed of. As the last batter stepped up, Jake could see the determination in the boy's eyes. He couldn't let this chance slip away. He took a deep breath, visualizing the perfect pitch. With a swift motion, he released the ball. The sound of the bat connecting with the ball sent a jolt through him, but he watched as the ball soared high into the air. "Catch it!" his teammates shouted. Jake's heart sank for a moment, fearing that he had let them down. But out of the corner of his eye, he saw his teammates sprinting towards the outfield, arms outstretched. The boy leaped, catching the ball just before it hit the ground. Cheers erupted around them, and Jake felt a rush of relief and joy. As the scrimmage continued, Jake found himself fully immersed in the game. He was no longer just Mike Johnson's son. He was Jake Johnson, a player in his own right. With each play, he felt a growing sense of belonging, a feeling that he was carving his own legacy in the dust of the baseball diamond. When the scrimmage finally ended, Jake stood with his teammates, panting but exhilarated. Coach Thompson called everyone together, and Jake's stomach twisted with anticipation. He could see the proud smile on his father's face in the bleachers, and at that moment, he knew he had given it his all. "Great job out there, everyone," Coach Thompson began, his voice steady. "You all showed heart today, and that's what I'm looking for. I'll be making my decisions in the next few days, so keep your heads up." With that, the boys began to disperse, talking animatedly about their performances. Jake felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. He had put everything into today, but would it be enough? As he walked toward the bleachers, he felt the weight of the jersey on his back, a reminder of the legacy he was trying to uphold and the new path he was forging for himself. "Hey, kid," Coach Thompson called out, waving Jake over. "I want to talk to you for a second." Jake's heart raced again as he approached the coach, unsure of what to expect. He felt the eyes of his teammates on him, curiosity buzzing in the air. What could Coach Thompson possibly want to say? "Nice job out there," the coach said, his gruff exterior softening for a moment. "You've got potential, but I need to know more about that jersey you're wearing. Your dad was quite the player back in the day." Jake swallowed hard, the weight of the question hanging heavily in the air. "Yeah, he was," he replied, pride swelling in his chest. "He taught me everything I know." As he spoke, he felt a surge of determination. This was his moment to share his passion. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a warm glow across the baseball field, Jake felt his heart race with anticipation. The air was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant sounds of laughter and chatter from the other kids who were milling about, tossing baseballs and bantering with one another. Jake wiped his sweaty palms on the fabric of his father's old jersey, its faded blue a testament to countless games played and memories made. Though he wore it with pride, it felt like a heavy weight on his shoulders, a reminder of the legacy he was stepping into, one that both inspired and terrified him. The tryouts began with the kids forming a loose circle around Coach Thompson, who stood with a clipboard in hand, his brow furrowed in concentration. Jake's eyes darted around, measuring the competition. There were the usual suspects: Tommy, the tall kid with an arm like a cannon; Sarah, who could run faster than anyone he knew; and even little Benny, who had a knack for catching anything thrown his way. Each one seemed to embody a different piece of the game, and Jake felt a twinge of self-doubt creep in. What if he didn't measure up? What if he failed to live up to the expectations tied to his father's name? "All right, listen up," Coach Thompson's voice boomed, cutting through the murmur of excitement. "We'll start with some batting practice. Each of you will get a turn at the plate. Let's see what you've got." As the first few kids stepped up to bat, Jake watched intently, trying to absorb their techniques. Each crack of the bat echoed in his ears, fueling his determination. He could feel his heart pounding in rhythm with the sound. When it was finally his turn, he stepped up to the plate, his breath hitching in his throat. The world around him faded into a blur. It was just him and the pitcher. Jake adjusted his grip on the bat, recalling his father's advice from countless afternoons spent in their backyard. "Keep your eye on the ball, Jake. Let it come to you. Don't rush it." He took a deep breath and focused, blocking out the noise of the other kids, and the whispers of their parents. The pitcher wound up and sent the ball flying toward him. Time slowed as Jake swung the bat with all his might. Crack! The sound reverberated through the field, and Jake felt a surge of exhilaration as the ball soared into the outfield. He sprinted to first base, adrenaline coursing through his veins, and then pushed on to second, the cheers of his friends ringing in his ears. He slid into second base, the dirt kicking up around him, and looked back to see Coach Thompson nodding in approval. "Nice hit, Johnson," Coach called out, a hint of a smile breaking through his typically stern demeanor. The compliment felt like a rush of electricity, sending Jake's spirits soaring. Maybe this jersey was more than just a piece of clothing. Maybe it was a conduit for his father's legacy, a reminder of the greatness he could achieve. After the batting practice, Coach Thompson summoned Jake over. "Hey, Jake," he said, his tone shifting to one of curiosity. "That was a solid hit. I noticed you're wearing your dad's old jersey. You know, I used to watch Mike play when I was younger. He had an arm that could throw flames. We thought he'd be the one to take us to the championships." Jake's heart swelled at the mention of his father's name. "Really? You knew him?" he asked, his eyes wide with excitement. "Of course," Coach Thompson replied, leaning back against the fence, a distant look in his eyes. "He was something special. I remember one game in particular. It was the final inning, and we were down by 3. Mike stepped up to the mound, and with the bases loaded, he struck out the last 3 batters one after another. The crowd went wild. It was like watching a superhero in action." Jake could hardly believe what he was hearing. His father, the star of the team, a hero in his own right. "He's always been my hero," Jake admitted, a hint of pride swelling in his chest. "I want to be just like him." Coach Thompson studied Jake for a moment, a contemplative expression crossing his face. "Just remember, Jake, it's not all about the glory. It's about playing for the love of the game. Your dad had that passion, and is what made him great." Jake nodded, absorbing the words like a sponge. He could feel a wave of hope washing over him. Perhaps wearing his father's jersey wasn't just a tribute, it was a source of strength. As the tryouts continued, he felt more confident, each hit, each catch, building on the momentum of his father's legacy. When the day finally came to an end, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm orange hue over the field. The other kids were celebrating their small victories, high fives and laughter filling the air. But Jake stood off to the side, his heart racing as he awaited Coach Thompson's final remarks. What if he had impressed the coach? What if he had secured a spot on the team? "All right, everyone. Great job today," Coach Thompson called, clapping his hands together. "I'll be posting the roster for the team tomorrow. You all showed a lot of promise out there. Just remember, whether you make the team or not, keep working hard and keep loving the game." Jake felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as he watched the other kids exchange stories about their performances. He couldn't help but think about the conversation he'd just had with Coach Thompson. The way the coach had spoken about his father, it felt like a glimpse into a world he had only heard about in stories. "Hey, Jake," a voice pulled him from his thoughts. It was Tommy, the tall kid with the cannon arm. "Nice job out there. That hit was epic." "Thanks," Jake replied, his cheeks flushing with pride. "I just hope I made the team." "You totally will. You've got your dad's jersey on. You're practically a legend already." Tommy laughed, clapping him on the back. Jake smiled, but inside he felt a flicker of doubt. Would wearing his father's jersey really be enough? As he watched the sun set over the field, the sky turning shades of purple and pink, he felt the weight of his father's legacy pressing down on him. He wanted to make his father proud, but what if he failed? That night, as he lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that the world was shifting beneath him. The jersey hanging on the chair by his desk felt like a bridge between the past and the future. He could hear the echoes of cheers and the crack of bats, but alongside those sounds, He could also sense the whispers of doubt lurking in the shadows. "Tomorrow," he whispered to himself, clutching the covers tightly. "I'll show them. I'll show everyone what I can do." With that determination burning in his heart, he drifted off to sleep, dreaming of baseball fields and home runs, unaware of the secrets that lay ahead, waiting to unravel the very fabric of his family's legacy. Jake stood on the sidelines, his heart pounding in his chest as the other kids laughed and celebrated their successes. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the baseball field. The air was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant sound of parents cheering. He could hear snippets of conversations around him, filled with excited chatter about home runs and strikeouts. Yet, all Jake could focus on was the figure of Coach Thompson, who was walking toward him with a serious expression. "Jake," the coach called out, his voice deep and commanding. The boy straightened up, swallowing hard. He could feel the weight of his father's old jersey, the fabric slightly worn but full of memories. It was supposed to bring him luck, but now it felt like a heavy burden. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Coach Thompson gestured for Jake to follow him away from the group. The other kids continued their celebrations, oblivious to the tension that was beginning to coil inside Jake. He followed the coach, his mind racing with possibilities. Was he about to be told he made the team? Or was there something else weighing on the coach's mind? They walked to a quieter corner of the field, where the sounds of laughter faded into the background. Jake's palms were sweaty, and he wiped them on his shorts, trying to steady himself. Coach Thompson turned to him, his brow furrowed. "Jake, I wanted to talk to you about your father," the coach began, his tone softer than usual. "I know you're proud of him, and rightfully so. He was a fantastic player." "Yeah, he was," Jake replied, unable to hide the pride in his voice. "He was the best." Coach Thompson nodded, a hint of sadness crossing his features. "But there are some things about your dad's past that you might not know. Things that affected not just him, but the entire community." Jake's heart sank. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think it's important you hear it from me rather than from someone else," the coach said, taking a deep breath. "Years ago, your father was involved in a scandal that led to his being banned from the league. It was a serious matter, and it affected his career." Jake's mind raced, grappling with the weight of the coach's words. "What kind of scandal?" he asked, his voice trembling. "He never told me anything about that." "I know," Coach Thompson said, his eyes filled with empathy. "He was wrongfully accused of something he didn't do. But damage was done, and he chose to step away rather than fight it. He thought it would be better for you and your mother." But why didn't he ever say anything? Jake felt a mix of betrayal and confusion. The stories he had grown up with, the heroics and triumphs, now felt like a facade. "Because he loves you," the coach replied, placing a hand on Jake's shoulder. "He wanted to protect you from the truth. It's a heavy burden to carry." Jake stood there, his mind racing. The joyful sounds of the other kids faded into a dull roar as he processed the information. So he just let them think he was a cheat. His voice cracked, and he felt tears prick the corners of his eyes. How could he do that? "Sometimes, Jake, it's easier to walk away than to fight a battle that seems unwinnable," Coach Thompson explained. "It doesn't mean he's not a good man or a good father. He was trying to shield you from the pain. But it hurts," Jake exclaimed, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I thought I could be like him. I wanted to wear his jersey and make him proud. Now I don't even know if I should be proud of him." "Pride is complicated," Coach Thompson said, his voice steady. "You can be proud of his talent, but it's okay to feel hurt by the choices he made. It's a part of understanding who he is. You need to talk to him, Jake. He deserves a chance to explain." Jake's heart raced as he turned to look back at the field, where other kids were still celebrating. He felt completely out of place, like he was standing on the outside of a window, watching a world he no longer felt connected to. "I don't know if I can face him," he admitted, his voice wavering. "You can," Coach Thompson encouraged, his grip on Jake's shoulder tightening slightly. "You're stronger than you think, and remember, It's okay to be angry. Just don't let that anger take away from your love for him." With a heavy heart, Jake nodded slowly. He could feel the tears welling up again, but he fought them back. "I have to go," he said, turning on his heel and heading towards the parking lot. "I need to talk to him." As Jake walked away, he could hear Coach Thompson calling out, "Jake, just remember, the truth can set you free. Don't let it weigh you down." The words echoed in his mind, but they offered little comfort as he climbed into his mother's old sedan. The drive home was a blur. The scenery passed by in a haze as Jake wrestled with his emotions. The air felt thick and suffocating, and he struggled to find the right words to say when he saw his father. Would he be angry? Disappointed? Or would there be understanding? Would his father apologize, or would he defend himself? Arriving at home, Jake hesitated at the front door, his hand hovering over the doorknob. The familiar sounds of the house, his mother's soft humming in the kitchen and the clattering of dishes, felt oddly distant. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. "Jake, is that you?" his mother called out, her voice warm and inviting. "Yeah, Mom," he replied, trying to sound normal, but his voice cracked again. He could feel the knot in his stomach tightening. In the living room, he spotted his father sitting on the couch, a newspaper spread across his lap. Mike looked up, his expression shifting from casual interest to concern as he saw the look on Jake's face. "Hey, buddy. Everything okay?" Mike asked, setting the newspaper aside. Jake opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. Instead, he took a seat across from his father, his heart racing. "I talked to Coach Thompson," he finally blurted out. Mike's face paled, and he leaned forward, bracing his elbows on his knees. "Did he say something about my past?" "Yeah," Jake said, his voice trembling with the weight of the revelation. "He told me about the scandal, about why you were banned, why you never played again." Mike's expression turned somber, and for a moment, the room was filled with a heavy silence. "I should have told you," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought it would be easier if you didn't know." "Easier for who?" Jake shot back, the anger he had felt earlier surfacing again. "For you? Or for me?" "I thought I was protecting you," Mike replied, his eyes filled with regret. "I never wanted to be a source of shame for you." "Shame?" Jake echoed, frustration bubbling to the surface. "You're my dad, I look up to you, but now I feel like I don't even know you." In that moment, the truth hung heavy between them, casting a shadow over the love and admiration Jake had always held for his father. As the words settled in the air, he realized that the journey ahead would demand more than just understanding. It would require confronting the past, unraveling secrets, and finding a way to reconcile the man he idolized with the reality that had been hidden from him for so long. Jake stood on the sidelines, his heart pounding in his chest, as he watched the other kids celebrating their successes on the field. The sun had begun to dip low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced across the grass. Laughter and cheers echoed around him, but all he could feel was the weight of Coach Thompson's words hanging in the air like a dark cloud. He clenched his fists, still wearing his father's old jersey, the fabric soft and worn against his skin, a reminder of the man he admired most. "Hey, Jake," called out Ryan, one of his teammates, as he jogged over, his face flushed with excitement. "Did you hear? I hit a home run. Coach said I'm definitely on the team." Jake forced a smile, nodding in response, though his insides felt like they were in knots. "That's awesome, Ryan. Really awesome." The words tasted sour on his tongue. He wanted to be happy for his friend, but the revelation about his father felt like a shadow looming over everything. As Ryan ran off to join the others, Jake turned his back to the field, seeking solace in the quietness of the bleachers. There, he spotted his father, Mike, sitting alone, his expression a mix of pride and concern. The sight of him brought back a flood of memories, throwing a baseball in the backyard, the way he used to lift Jake high above his head after a home run shout, the stories he would tell of his glory days. But now, Those memories felt tainted, marred by the scandal that had rocked their family. "Hey, buddy," Mike called out, his voice warm yet laced with an underlying tension. Jake hesitated before walking over, unsure of how to bridge the gap that had formed between them in such a short time. "You did great out there," Mike said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Did I?" Jake replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Coach Thompson. He told me something today." Mike's expression shifted, a flicker of worry crossing his face. "What did he tell you?" Jake swallowed hard, the words sticking in his throat. "About you, about the league, and the reason you're not playing anymore." The smile faded from Mike's face, replaced by a deep frown. "Jake, He paused, looking away as if searching for the right words in the fading light. "It's complicated." "Complicated? You mean you were banned? All those kids were celebrating, and I felt like I was wearing a badge of shame instead of a jersey." Jake's voice rose, his frustration bubbling over. "How could you let me wear this?" He gestured to the old jersey, the fabric now feeling heavy and suffocating against his chest. "Jake, please," Mike said, his tone pleading. "I didn't want you to find out this way. I thought you could just focus on playing. I thought if you wore the jersey, you could make your own legacy." "Legacy?" Jake scoffed, his eyes flashing. "What kind of legacy is that? You're my hero, Dad, but now I don't know what to think. How could you let this happen?" Mike ran a hand through his hair, visibly distressed. "I didn't let anything happen. I was wrongfully accused, but I didn't fight it. I thought it was better for you to grow up without the burden of my past." "Better for me?" Jake echoed, his voice rising again. "You think this is better? I wanted to be like you. I wanted to make the team, to wear your jersey because it meant something. But now, it just feels like a joke." The silence between them thickened, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Jake turned away, feeling tears prick at his eyes. He couldn't believe that his father, the man he had looked up to all his life, had a past filled with such darkness. "Jake," Mike said softly, reaching out to touch his son's shoulder, but Jake flinched away. "Please, just listen to me. I never wanted you to feel ashamed. I wanted you to have the chance to build your own name in the sport, to not have to carry my mistakes." "Your mistakes?" Jake cried, his voice cracking. "You didn't even fight for it. You just let them label you a cheater. How can you expect me to look up to you when you won't even stand up for yourself?" "I know," Mike admitted, his voice trembling. "I know I should have fought harder. I was scared. Scared of what it would do to our family. I thought it was best to move on. But I see now that it only created more problems." Jake looked at his father, searching his face for the man he admired. He saw the pain etched in the lines around Mike's eyes, the regret, and the shame. It was all too much. "I need some time," he said finally, turning away from Mike and heading toward the exit of the field, his heart heavy with confusion and betrayal. As he walked, the sounds of laughter and celebration faded into the background, replaced by the hum of his thoughts. He had to process everything. The dreams he had built around his father, the admiration that now felt so tainted. He felt lost. Suddenly, he overheard two parents talking nearby, their voices low but clear. "Did you hear about Michael Johnson?" one said. "I can't believe he's back in town after everything that happened. What a shame. I always knew he was trouble." Jake froze, the words striking him like a physical blow. Trouble. The term echoed in his mind, and he felt his stomach churn. He had never heard anyone refer to his father in such a way, and it twisted the knife of betrayal deeper. "Yeah, I heard he was a great player, but once the scandal broke, he just disappeared. No one wanted to be associated with him," the other parent replied, their tone tinged with disdain. Jake clenched his jaw, anger boiling within him. He wanted to yell at them, to defend his father, to scream that Mike was innocent, but he couldn't find the words. Instead, he turned and walked away, the whispers trailing after him like a shadow he couldn't escape. Back home, he slammed the door behind him, the sound echoing through the empty house. Everything felt different now, tainted by the harsh light of reality. He dropped his backpack onto the floor and sank onto the couch, his mind racing with questions. What did he really know about his father? How could he reconcile the man he had idolized with the whispers of shame he had just overheard? Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as Jake sat in silence, wrestling with the turmoil inside him. The walls of their living room felt like they were closing in, and he knew he had to confront Mike. He needed answers, needed to understand the truth about the man he called Dad. Suddenly, the front door creaked open, and Jake heard Mike's footsteps approaching. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the conversation that was to come. This time, he wouldn't hold back. He needed to know everything, to peel back the layers of silence that had surrounded their family for so long. "Jake?" Mike called from the hallway, his voice uncertain. "Can we talk?" Jake stood up, determination coursing through him. "Yeah, we can talk. But I want the truth, Dad. No more hiding." And with that, the stage was set for a confrontation that would change everything. The echoes of the past were about to collide with the present, and Jake was ready to face whatever revelations lay ahead. Jake burst through the door of his house, adrenaline surging in his veins. The moment he stepped inside, he could feel the weight of the world on his shoulders. He had to confront his father, Mike, about the shocking revelation from Coach Thompson. The echoes of the scandal clung to him like a heavy fog, and he couldn't shake the sense of betrayal that gnawed at his heart. "Dad?" Jake called out, his voice trembling slightly as he searched the familiar rooms that had always been a source of comfort. The sun streamed through the windows, casting a golden glow on the living room, but Jake felt anything but warm inside. In the corner of the room, sitting in an old, worn-out armchair, was Mike. He looked older than his years, the lines on his forehead deepening with each passing moment. In his hands, he held an old newspaper clipping, the edges frayed and yellowed with age. Jake's heart sank as he recognized it. A faded article detailing the scandal that had haunted their family for so long. "Jake," Mike said, lifting his gaze and forcing a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I was just thinking." His voice was low, almost a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile atmosphere. "Thinking about what?" Jake pressed, his fists clenching at his sides. "About how you let me wear that jersey today. About how you let everyone think you were some kind of hero." Mike's expression darkened and he sighed deeply, the weight of his past pressing down on him like a heavy shroud. "I never wanted you to find out this way. I wanted to protect you from the truth." "Protect me?" Jake echoed, incredulity lacing his voice. "You've done nothing but keep me in the dark. Everyone at the field was talking about it. Coach Thompson said you were banned for cheating, and I don't even know what to think anymore." Mike's shoulders slumped, and he looked away, the pain etched in his face evident. "I was wrongfully accused, Jake. I swear it. There was a misunderstanding, and instead of fighting back, I chose to walk away. I thought it would be easier for everyone. I thought it would protect you." "Easier?" Jake shot back, his voice rising. "You think it was easier for me to hear that my dad was a cheater? That you ruined your career and our family's name? How could you just let it go like that?" Mike's eyes hardened, but there was a flicker of sadness there, one that made Jake's heart twist. "You don't know what it's like to be in my shoes, Jake. I was young, scared, and ashamed. I thought if I didn't fight it, it would eventually fade away. But it didn't. It only grew." Jake felt a knot forming in his throat. "You could have told me. You could have fought for your name. For us. Now, boy, do you really think it would have changed anything?" Mike challenged, his voice rising. "The town had made its decision. They didn't want to hear my side. A star player turned into a villain overnight. I couldn't bear the shame of dragging you into it all. I thought it was better to let it lie." "Let it lie?" Jake's voice cracked. "You've let it lie for too long. We could have fought together. You could have been my hero, not just a man in a jersey. I need to know the truth." Silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating. Mike looked down at the newspaper, and Jake could see the tremors in his hands. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I was saving you from the pain of the truth. I deserved to know the truth. We can't keep living in this shadow. Not anymore." Jake's determination burned bright, and he stepped closer, urgency coursing through him. "What if we fight together? What if we clear your name?" At that moment, the doorbell rang, breaking the tension like glass shattering on the floor. Both Jake and Mike exchanged glances, bewildered. "Who could that be?" Mike murmured, his brow furrowing with concern. "I don't know. But I'm not letting this go. Not now," Jake said resolutely, anxiety intermingling with a sense of purpose. He marched toward the door, the weight of his father's past hanging heavily on his shoulders. As he opened the door, his heart raced. Standing before him was a man Jake barely recognized, yet the familiar features sparked a flicker of recognition. It was Tom, one of Mike's old teammates, a man who had always been a fixture in their lives when Jake was younger. "Tom!" Mike exclaimed, surprise evident in his voice. "What are you doing here?" Tom stepped inside, his expression serious. "I heard about the tryouts and the discussions around town. I needed to talk to you, Mike. It's important." Jake watched the exchange, curiosity piqued. "What's going on?" he asked, eyes darting between the two men. "Jake, this involves you too," Tom said, his gaze settling on the young boy. "I've got something to tell you both. Something that might change everything." "What do you mean?" Jake pressed, feeling his heart quicken. Tom shifted uncomfortably on his feet. "I know about the scandal, and I know your dad didn't cheat. There's evidence, documents, and witness accounts that could exonerate him. But he never disclosed it." Jake's breath hitched, and he turned to Mike, disbelief flooding his senses. "You had evidence. You never told me." Mike looked torn, his face a mask of regret. "I thought it was too late. I thought no one would believe me." "Believe you?" Jake's voice trembled with frustration. "You could have at least tried. We could have fought this together." Tom stepped closer, urgency in his tone. "Listen, we can still do this. We can gather the evidence and present it to the league. It's not too late, Mike. You can clear your name, but we need to act fast." Mike's eyes glistened, a mixture of hope and fear swirling within them. "I don't know if I can face it all again, Tom. What if it leads to more pain? Or what if it leads to redemption?" Tom countered, his voice firm. "You owe it to Jake, to yourself. You have to fight back. No more running. No more silence." The tension in the room crackled like electricity, and Jake felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "Dad, please," he urged, his voice softening. "We can do this. We can face it together." Mike looked from Jake to Tom, the gears of thought turning in his mind. For the first time in years, a glimmer of hope ignited within him. "All right," he finally said, determination seeping into his voice. "Let's do it. Let's fight for the truth." As they stood together, Jake felt a sense of unity forming, a bond forged in the fires of adversity. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time, he believed they could face it together, as a family. The past no longer held them captive. Instead, it became a catalyst for change. But as they prepared to take the first steps toward redemption, the doorbell rang again, a haunting reminder that the truth was never straightforward, and the past could always return to haunt them.